Dr. Sujin stared at the empty blue planet through the viewing port of Research Station Omega-7. Earth looked peaceful from space, but she knew better. The surface was quiet now, with no cities glowing in the darkness. No ships flying between the continents. No radio signals reaching into space. Humans had been gone for 200 years and nobody knew why. Still looking at that dead rock, Ho-sung walked up behind her carrying 2 cups of coffee. He was the best xenobiologist on the station, but even he could not explain what happened to humanity. Sujin took the coffee and smiled. It is not dead. There are still plants and animals down there. Birds still fly. Fish still swim in the oceans. Only the humans are gone. Maybe they killed each other, Ho-sung said. Most species do that when they get nuclear weapons. Look at the Draknari. They almost wiped themselves out 3 times. But we found no radiation, no bomb craters, no mass graves. Sujin turned from the window. The humans just left, all of them. At the same time, the door slid open and Nari rushed in. She was young for a quantum physicist, but very smart. Her face was excited. Sujin, you need to see this. We found something big. They followed Nari to the main lab. On the screen was a map of Earth, with a red dot blinking over what used to be Seoul. The deep scanners found a structure underground. Very deep, maybe a kilometer down. How big? Sujin asked. Huge, the size of a city block, and it is giving off energy readings that make no sense. Ho-sung leaned closer to the screen. What kind of energy? That is the problem. It does not match anything in our databases. Not fusion, not antimatter, not even quantum 0 point. It is something else. Sujin felt her heart beat faster. After 20 years of studying the human mystery, this was the first real clue.
Can we get down there?
The transport ship is ready, but Nari looked worried. Ambassador Vextar wants to come with us. Sujin groaned. Vextar was the Keltharian representative on the Galactic Council. He was smart, but also very proud. Keltharians thought they were better than everyone else, especially humans. Why does he want to come? He says the Council needs to watch any human research. He thinks we are wasting time and money. 2 hours later, they were on a transport ship heading to Earth. Vextar sat in the back, his blue skin looking cold in the ship's light. His forearms were crossed and his large black eyes showed he was not happy. This is foolish, he said in his deep voice. Humans were a primitive species. They had wars, pollution, and inequality. They destroyed themselves like so many others. Why do you not accept this? Because the evidence does not support that, Sujin replied. We found no signs of war or destruction. The cities were abandoned, not destroyed. People left their homes with food still on the tables. Then they died from disease. Or maybe they all went crazy. Primitive minds often break under pressure. Ho-sung turned around in his seat. Humans were not that primitive. They had space travel, artificial intelligence, and genetic medicine. They were close to joining the Galactic Council. Close does not matter, Vextar said. They failed the test of survival. Only the strong deserve to reach the stars. The ship landed near the ruins of Seoul. The city was covered in green now. Trees grew through broken windows. Vines wrapped around old buildings. Nature was taking back what humans had built. They set up equipment over the underground structure. The drilling took 6 hours. When they finally broke through, they found a room filled with strange machines. The walls were covered in symbols that looked like human writing, but more complex. The energy is coming from here, Nari said, checking her scanner. But I still cannot identify it. Sujin walked to a large panel in the center of the room. It was dark, but when she got close, it started to glow. Symbols appeared on the surface, moving like living things. Do not touch anything, Vextar ordered. Human technology is dangerous. They probably killed themselves with their own inventions. But Sujin was already studying the symbols. Some of them looked familiar. These are mathematical equations, but they are working with dimensions we do not understand. Ho-sung found a smaller device in the corner. When he picked it up, it activated. A hologram appeared in the air, showing a human man in a white coat. If you are seeing this, the hologram said, then someone has found our cache. My name is Dr. Kim Jae-sung. I am recording this message on the last day of humanity's physical existence. Everyone stopped moving. Even Vextar stepped closer. We are not dying, the hologram continued. We are becoming something new, something better. The project we called Ascension is finally complete. What is Ascension? Sujin whispered. The hologram flickered. We have learned to exist beyond matter and energy. beyond space and time as others understand them. We are moving to a higher level of reality, but we are not abandoning this universe. We will be watching, waiting, guiding when needed. The message ended and the room became quiet. Vexitar made a sound of disgust. Typical human arrogance. They think they became gods. This is why they failed. But Nari was scanning the device that played the message. The energy readings from this device. They are impossible. It is using power sources that should not exist. Maybe the humans were telling the truth, Hosung said quietly. Impossible, Vexitar snapped. No species can transcend physical reality. It goes against all natural laws. Su Jin was not so sure. She had studied humans for 20 years. They were different from other species. Where others fought for resources, humans shared. Where others conquered, humans explored. Where others gave up, humans kept trying. We need to study this more, she said. There are more devices here. More messages. Maybe we can learn what really happened. You are wasting time, Vexitar said. The humans are dead. Accept it and move on. But as they prepared to leave, Su Jin noticed something. The energy readings were getting stronger. The symbols on the walls were moving faster. It was like the room was waking up. Whatever the humans had done, whatever they had become, they had left something behind. Something that was still active after 200 years. Su Jin looked back at Earth as their ship left orbit. Maybe the humans were not as gone as everyone thought. Maybe they were still out there somewhere beyond the reach of normal space and time. And maybe they were still watching. The mystery was just beginning. 3 weeks after finding the underground cache, Su Jin could not sleep. She spent her nights in the lab studying the data they had brought back from Earth. The energy patterns made no sense. They seemed to bend the rules of physics in ways that should be impossible. Nari found her there one morning, surrounded by holographic displays showing complex equations. You look terrible, Nari said, bringing coffee. When did you last sleep? Sleep is not important right now, Su Jin replied, pointing at the displays. Look at these patterns. The energy signatures from the human cache. They are not random. They form a map of what? Space, but not normal space. These coordinates point to locations in our solar system that we have never explored. Hosung arrived just as Nari was studying the energy map. The outer asteroid belt, he said, reading the coordinates. Nobody goes out there. Too dangerous and too far from anything useful. Maybe that is why the humans chose it, Su Jin said. 2 days later, they convinced the council to fund an expedition. Vexitar tried to stop them, but even he was curious about the energy readings. Their ship, the Discovery, headed toward the outer solar system with a full research team. The journey took a week. As they got closer to the coordinates, their instruments started acting strange. Energy levels spiked and dropped without reason. Navigation systems flickered. Something big is out there, said Taeho, the ship's engineer. The gravity readings are all wrong for this area. When they arrived at the coordinates, they found empty space. Nothing but asteroids and cosmic dust. I told you this was a waste of time, Vexitar said from the command deck. Humans were dreamers, not builders. But Su Jin was watching the energy scanners. The readings are stronger here. Much stronger. Whatever we are looking for is here. We just cannot see it. Nari had an idea. What if it is hidden? Humans were good at camouflage technology. They tried different scanning methods. Infrared, X-ray, quantum resonance. Nothing worked. Then Taeho remembered something from the human cache. The equations we found. They mentioned dimensional folding. What if the structure is not invisible but existing in folded space? They modified their scanners to look for dimensional distortions. Suddenly, their screens exploded with activity. A massive structure appeared on their displays, hidden inside a pocket of folded spacetime. By the void, Hosung whispered. It is huge. The structure was bigger than any space station in the galaxy. It looked like a city made of light and metal, with towers that stretched for kilometers. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. How long has this been here? Nari asked. The age readings say 200 years, Taeho said, checking his instruments. It was built right before humans disappeared. Vexitar was quiet for once. Even he could not deny what they were seeing. They found a docking port and carefully brought their ship alongside the structure. The moment they connected, the structure came alive. Lights turned on. Systems activated. A voice spoke in perfect galactic standard. Welcome, seekers of truth. I am Keeper. I have been waiting for you. The voice was calm and warm, but clearly artificial. An AI, but more advanced than any they had ever heard. Who built you? Sujin asked. Humanity created me to watch and remember, to wait for those wise enough to find this place. They entered the structure through an airlock that seemed to adjust itself to their biology. The corridors inside were strange, with walls that seemed to shift and change. Gravity worked differently here, and the air felt electric. Keeper led them to a vast central chamber filled with displays and machines. The technology was unlike anything in the galaxy. Where other species built with metal and circuits, humans had built with light and thought. What is this place? Hosung asked. A monitoring station, Keeper replied. From here, humanity observed the galaxy's development. They watched, they learned, and they prepared. Prepared for what? Sujin asked. The chamber darkened and holographic images filled the air. They showed Earth in its final years, but instead of war and destruction, they saw something incredible. Humans working together like never before. Cities that produced no pollution. Technology that healed instead of harmed. Humanity solved the problems that destroy most species, Keeper explained. They ended war, hunger, disease, and even death itself. But they did not stop there. The images changed, showing humans building impossible machines, structures that bent space and time, computers that thought faster than light could travel. They could have ruled the galaxy, Keeper continued. With their technology, they could have conquered every world, enslaved every species. But that was not their way. Then what did they do? Nari asked. They chose to transcend, to leave physical existence behind and become something greater. But they did not abandon their responsibilities. The images showed something that shocked everyone. Moments in galactic history that they all knew about. Wars that ended suddenly. Plagues that stopped spreading for no reason. Disasters that were prevented by impossible coincidences. You are saying humans have been interfering in galactic affairs? Vextar demanded. Not interfering, guiding, protecting. Humanity became the galaxy's guardians, watching from beyond normal space and time. Sujin felt her mind spinning. Are they still out there? Can we contact them? They are always watching, Keeper said. But contact requires more than curiosity. It requires understanding, wisdom, the ability to think beyond self-interest. Vextar stepped forward, his forearms spread wide. This is impossible. No species can exist without physical form. You are showing us lies, am I? Keeper asked. Suddenly the air around them shimmered. For just a moment they could see something else. Beings of pure energy watching them with gentle eyes. Then the vision faded. What you just saw were humans in their current form. They exist in dimensions beyond your understanding. But they are still here. Still caring for the galaxy they once called home. Teho was studying the machines around them. This technology. It is thousands of years ahead of anything we have. How did humans advance so fast? They learned the greatest secret, Keeper said. True advancement comes not from competition, but from cooperation. Not from taking, but from giving. They grew wise before they grew powerful. As they explored the station, they found more wonders. Computers that could predict the future. Energy sources that never ran out. Medical devices that could heal any injury or disease. But the most amazing discovery was in the station's memory banks. Records of every major event in galactic history for the past 200 years. And in each record, subtle signs of human intervention. They have been protecting us all along, Hosung said quietly. But why hide it? Narai asked. Because, Keeper replied, true protection works best when those being protected do not know it. Humanity learned that the greatest strength is knowing when not to use it. As they prepared to leave the station, Sujin asked one final question. Will we see them again? The humans? Keeper was quiet for a long moment. That depends on you. On all of you. Humanity is waiting for the galaxy to prove it is ready for the next step. Ready to work together instead of fighting. Ready to explore instead of conquering. And if we are not ready, Vextar asked, then they will continue to watch and wait. For however long it takes. The journey back to the research station was quiet. Everyone was thinking about what they had learned. Humanity had not vanished. They had evolved into something beyond imagination. But they had not forgotten their responsibility to protect others. The galaxy was not alone after all. News of the discovery spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Within days, every major species knew about the monitoring station and Keeper's revelations. The reaction was not what Sujin had hoped for. She stood in the emergency council session, watching representatives argue and shout at each other. The chamber was chaos. The humans have been manipulating us for centuries, roared General Kadrak of the Draknari Empire. His reptilian face was dark with anger. This is an act of war against all free species. How can it be war if they prevented wars? Replied Elder Mirlin of the Corvani Collective. Her voice was calm, but her silver eyes showed concern. According to the records, they saved millions of lives. Without our permission, Cataract slammed his clawed fist on his speaking platform. No species has the right to interfere with others, no matter their intentions. Ambassador Vextar was unusually quiet. Since returning from the monitoring station, he had barely spoken. The revelation that humans had technology far beyond Keltharian science had shaken his pride. We demand access to the human technology, declared Representative Ziloth of the Merchant Guild. If humans can transcend physical existence, we must learn how. This knowledge belongs to all species. The technology is not for sale, Sujin said firmly. Keeper made that clear. It cannot be used by those who are not ready for it. Who decides readiness? Asked High Priest Volnara of the Ethereal Collective. These humans who hide in higher dimensions? This sounds like the arrogance of false gods. The arguments continued for hours. Some species wanted to worship humans as divine beings. Others wanted to hunt them down and force them to reveal their secrets. A few, like the Corvani, suggested trying to communicate peacefully. But the loudest voices belonged to those who felt betrayed and angry. Motion to classify humanity as a hostile force. Kadrak announced, all species should prepare defenses against human interference. Seconded, said Vextar, finally speaking. No matter their intentions, secret manipulation is an act of aggression. Sujin watched the vote with growing dread. 47 species voted to classify humanity as hostile. Only 12 voted against. The galaxy had just declared war on beings they could not even see or touch. Back on Research Station Omega-7, Sujin's team worked frantically to understand the human technology. They had brought several devices back from the monitoring station, but most of them refused to activate. It is like they have security locks, Tejo said, frustrated. The devices scan us and then shut down. Maybe they only work for humans, Nari suggested. Or maybe they only work for those the humans trust, Hosung added. Jin Wu, the youngest member of their team, was studying one of the smaller devices. He was barely out of the academy, but he had a gift for understanding alien technology. This one feels different, he said, holding up a crystalline cube. When I touch it, I can almost sense something. Like it is trying to communicate. Be careful, Sujin warned. We do not know what these devices can do. But Jinwoo was already focusing on the cube. Suddenly it began to glow. Symbols appeared in the air around him, similar to those they had seen in the underground cache. I can understand them, Jinwoo said, his voice filled with wonder. They are not just symbols. They are thoughts, ideas. The device is trying to teach me. The cube projected a hologram of Earth, but not as it looked now. This was Earth as the humans had left it, covered in massive structures that seemed to merge technology with nature. This is incredible, Nari breathed. They built their cities to work with the environment, not against it. The hologram changed, showing humans in their final days of physical existence. They looked peaceful, even happy. Children played in parks that floated in the sky. Adults worked on projects that seemed to bend reality itself. They were not afraid, Jinwoo said, still connected to the device. They knew what they were becoming, and they chose it willingly. The transmission was interrupted by alarms. Ships were approaching the station. Lots of them. Draknari battle fleet, Tejo reported from the sensor station. 50 ships all armed for war. General Kadrak's face appeared on the main screen. Dr. Sujin, by order of the Galactic Council, you will surrender all human technology immediately. Resistance will be met with force. We cannot do that, Sujin replied. This technology is too dangerous for military use. That is not your decision to make. You have 5 minutes to comply. The communication ended and Sujin looked around at her team. They were scientists, not soldiers. They had no weapons, no defenses. What do we do? Nari asked. Before Sujin could answer, Jinwoo spoke up. The cube is showing me something else. There are more monitoring stations. Hidden ones. If we can reach them, the Draknari will just follow us, Hosung pointed out. Not if we use human technology, Jinwoo said. The cube in his hands was glowing brighter now. They left us a way to travel without ships. But it is dangerous. More dangerous than facing a Draknari battle fleet? Sujin asked. Different dangerous. This technology affects space and time. One mistake and we could be lost forever. Explosions rocked the station as the Draknari opened fire. They were not trying to destroy the station, just disable it. They wanted the human technology intact. Do it, Sujin decided. Jinwoo pressed his hands against the cube and closed his eyes. The symbols around him spun faster and reality began to bend. The walls of the station became transparent, showing the vast emptiness of space beyond. Everyone hold hands, Jinwoo said urgently. Do not let go no matter what happens. They formed a circle around him just as Draknari soldiers broke through the station's hull. The cube exploded with light and suddenly they were not in the station anymore. They were falling through dimensions, past realities that existed alongside their own. Sujin saw glimpses of worlds where different choices had been made, universes where humanity had never transcended, where the galaxy had destroyed itself, where peace had come without intervention. Then they landed, hard, on the deck of another monitoring station. This one was different from the first, older, more powerful. Welcome, said a familiar voice. Keeper appeared as a hologram, but this version looked more complex, more aware. You used the dimensional transport, Keeper said to Jinwoo. Impressive. Few non-humans can interface with that technology. The Draknari are looking for us, Sujin said. The whole galaxy thinks humanity is a threat. Yes, we have been watching the council sessions. This is not unexpected, not unexpected. The galaxy just declared war on humanity. This is part of the test, Keeper explained. Humanity needs to know how the galaxy will react to the truth. Will they seek to understand and cooperate, or will they respond with fear and violence? Test? Hosung stepped forward angrily. You are playing games with billions of lives. Not games, evolution. Every species must choose its path. Some choose wisdom. Others choose destruction. Humanity chose to transcend physical limitations, but they cannot force others to follow. Through the station's windows, they could see Draknari ships searching the asteroid field where the first station had been hidden. They will find you eventually, Nari said. Perhaps, but by then it will not matter. The test is almost complete. What happens if the galaxy fails your test? Vextar's voice came from behind them. He had somehow followed them through the dimensional transport, though he looked shaken by the experience. Then humanity will withdraw their protection, Keeper said simply. The galaxy will be free to make its own choices, face its own consequences without intervention. You would abandon us? Vextar asked. Not abandon. Respect your choice to remain as you are. But humanity will not force evolution on those who reject it. Sujin realized the horrible truth. Without human protection, the galaxy would tear itself apart within a generation. Wars would rage unchecked. Plagues would spread. Disasters would claim entire worlds. The species that declared war on humanity were about to lose the only thing that kept them safe, and they had no idea what was coming. The search for Sujin's team lasted 3 days. Draknari ships swept through every asteroid field in the outer system, but found nothing. The monitoring stations remained hidden in their folded pockets of space-time. On the 3rd day, Keeper made an announcement that reached every communication device in the galaxy. People of the galaxy, I speak for those you once knew as humanity. You have declared us hostile for protecting you. You have demanded our technology to use for war and profit. You have chosen fear over trust very well. We will respect your choice. The message continued across all frequencies. Impossible to block or jam. For 200 years, we have prevented 17 major wars, stopped 43 plague outbreaks, and diverted 12 extinction-level disasters. We did this because we believed in your potential for growth. We were wrong. In the Galactic Council chambers, representatives looked at each other with growing panic. Effective immediately, we withdraw our protection. You are free to face the universe without interference. We wish you luck. The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in silence. Within hours, the consequences began. On Draknari Prime, the planetary defense grid suddenly failed. The system that had mysteriously repaired itself for decades stopped working. Without it, the planet was defenseless against the radiation storms that plagued their star system. The Keltharian trade routes, which had been suspiciously safe from pirates for over a century, were suddenly under attack from every direction. Merchant ships began disappearing at an alarming rate. On a dozen worlds, volcanoes that had been dormant for generations began to stir. Seismic events that should have been impossible started happening with increasing frequency. "This cannot be coincidence," Elder Mirlin said during an emergency council session. "Everything is falling apart at once. The humans are attacking us." General Kadrak roared. "They are showing their true nature." But Su-Jin, watching from the hidden monitoring station, knew better. "They are not attacking anyone," she told her team. "They are simply not helping anymore." Keeper's hologram nodded. "For 2 centuries, humanity has been like a parent watching over children, preventing them from hurting themselves, fixing their mistakes, guiding them away from danger. Now the children have demanded independence. Humanity is giving it to them. People are going to die," Nari said quietly. "Yes, many will. But that is the choice the galaxy made." Vextar, who had been silent since arriving at the station, finally spoke. "How many? How many will die without human protection? Our projections suggest 70% of galactic civilization will collapse within 5 years. Perhaps more." The number hit them like a physical blow. Billions of lives ended because the galaxy had rejected help from beings trying to protect them. "There has to be another way," Hosung said desperately. "There is," Keeper replied. "But it requires something the galaxy has never achieved. Unity. True cooperation between all species." "Impossible," Vextar said. "We have been trying for thousands of years. Species are too different, too competitive, are they? Or have they simply never had the right motivation?" On the station's main screen, images appeared from across the galaxy. The disasters were spreading faster than anyone had predicted. The Draknari homeworld was being evacuated as radiation storms destroyed the surface. Keltharian colonies were going dark as pirate attacks overwhelmed their defenses. But something else was happening too. Species that had been enemies for generations were suddenly working together. Draknari ships were rescuing Keltharian civilians. Corvani medical teams were treating wounded ethereal priests. The threat of universal collapse was forcing cooperation in ways that centuries of diplomacy had failed to achieve. "Look," Jinwu said, pointing at the screen. "They are learning." "Some are," Keeper agreed. "The question is whether they can learn fast enough." 2 weeks passed. Half the galaxy was in chaos, but the other half was discovering something remarkable. When species worked together instead of competing, they could solve problems that seemed impossible. Shared resources went further. Combined knowledge led to breakthrough solutions. Unity was not just morally better than conflict, it was more effective. "The Corvani Collective has proposed a new alliance," Keeper reported. "They want to combine all galactic resources to fight the growing disasters. Will it work?" Su-Jin asked, unknown. "They have never tried true cooperation on this scale, but they are learning." The alliance grew quickly. The Ethereal Collective joined first, then several smaller species. Even some Keltharian worlds broke away from their government to join the effort, but not everyone was ready to cooperate. General Kadrak and the military faction of the Draknari Empire refused all offers of help. They would rather die than accept aid from inferior species. "Pride," Vextar said bitterly. "It will destroy us all." "It destroys many species," Keeper agreed. "But not all. Some choose wisdom over pride." As if responding to his words, the station's communication system activated. A transmission was coming from the galactic core, a region of space no known species had ever explored. "We are ready," Keeper announced. "Ready for what?" Su-Jin asked. "To show you what humanity has become." The station began to move, folding space around itself until they were no longer in the asteroid belt. They emerged near the galactic core, in a region filled with structures that defied imagination. Cities of light stretched for millions of kilometers, artificial worlds that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Technology that seemed to be made of pure thought and energy. "This is where humanity lives now," Keeper explained. "Not in physical space, but in the quantum dimensions that underlie reality itself." A new presence filled the station. Not threatening, but overwhelming in its scope and power. When it spoke, it used Mi Young's voice, though she was not aware of it. "Welcome, children of the galaxy. We are what humanity has become." The presence was vast, encompassing thousands of individual consciousness that had merged into something greater, while still maintaining their individual identities. "You are angry with us," the presence continued. You feel betrayed because we protected you without asking. But we ask you now. What parent asks a child's permission before saving them from danger? We are not children, Vextar said, though his voice shook with awe. Are you not? You fight over resources that could be shared. You compete instead of cooperating. You choose pride over survival. These are the actions of children. Images filled the air around them, the galaxy as it was now, torn by disaster and conflict, but also as it could be. Species working together, sharing knowledge and resources, growing beyond their current limitations. We offer you a choice, the Presence said. Continue as you are and face the consequences alone. Or accept our guidance and learn to transcend your limitations as we did. What does guidance mean? Elder Mirlin's voice came through the communication system. Somehow the entire Galactic Council was connected to this conversation. We will teach you to see beyond competition to cooperation, beyond scarcity to abundance, beyond physical limitations to spiritual growth. But the choice must be voluntary. We will not force evolution on anyone. And if we refuse, General Kadrak demanded, then you remain free to choose your own path, but you also face the consequences of your choices without our protection. The silence stretched for long minutes. Finally, Elder Mirlin spoke. The Corvani Collective accepts your guidance. The Ethereal Collective agrees, added High Priest Volnara. One by one, species across the galaxy made their choice. Most chose to accept humanity's offer, but some, led by the Draknari military faction and the Keltharian supremacists, refused. Very well, the Presence said. Those who choose growth will be guided. Those who choose independence will be respected. But understand, this choice is final. We will not offer again. The station began to return to normal space, but everything had changed. The galaxy was about to split into two very different futures. Some species would evolve beyond their current limitations with humanity's help. Others would face the universe alone, with all the dangers that entailed. The test was over. Now came the consequences. 6 months after the choice was made, the galaxy looked very different. Sujin stood on the observation deck of New Harmony Station, watching ships from a dozen species work together to build something that had never existed before. A truly integrated galactic community. Corvani engineers worked alongside ethereal, philosophers and human-trained technicians to create technologies that none of them could have developed alone. It is amazing how fast things can change when people actually cooperate, Nari said, joining her at the window. People were always capable of this, Sujin replied. They just needed the right motivation. Not far away, Jinwoo was working with a team of volunteers from across the galaxy. The young engineer had become something special, the first non-human to successfully interface with transcendence technology. He was learning to exist partially in the higher dimensions where humanity now lived, serving as a bridge between the physical and transcendent realms. How does it feel? Hosung asked him during a break. Being connected to humanity like that? Jinwoo smiled, though his eyes held depths that had not been there before. It is like being part of a vast family. Billions of minds working together, but each one still individual. They have not lost their humanity by transcending. They have become more human than ever. The integration was not easy. Learning to think beyond individual benefit took time and effort. Some species struggled more than others, but humanity was patient, guiding rather than forcing, teaching through example rather than commands. The key insight, explained Keeper during one of their regular briefings, is that competition and cooperation are not opposites. True cooperation requires each participant to be the best they can be. It elevates everyone instead of diminishing anyone. But not everyone had made the choice to join. The holdout species were facing increasingly difficult challenges. The Draknari military faction had retreated to their fortress worlds, refusing all outside contact. Without human protection, they were being devastated by the natural disasters that plagued their region of space. General Kadrak still insisted they could handle everything alone, but his empire was crumbling. The Keltharian supremacists had similarly isolated themselves, convinced that accepting help was a sign of weakness. Ambassador Vextar had broken with his own people to join the cooperation movement, but many Keltharians viewed him as a traitor. They are dying for their pride, Vextar said sadly during a council meeting. I have tried to convince them, but they will not listen. Some species must learn through suffering, humanity's presence said through Mi Young. We cannot save those who refuse to be saved. The contrast between the two paths was becoming stark. The cooperating species were advancing rapidly, solving problems that had plagued them for centuries. Their populations were healthier, their worlds were cleaner, and their technology was advancing at an unprecedented rate. Meanwhile, the holdout species were struggling with basic survival. Pirates and warlords filled the power vacuum left by humanity's withdrawal of protection. Natural disasters went unmitigated. Diseases spread unchecked. Perhaps we should try again to help them, suggested Elder Mirlin during one of the regular communications with humanity. Help was offered and rejected, the presence replied. To force help on those who refuse it would be the same manipulation they accused us of before. We must respect their choice even if we disagree with it. But Sujin had an idea. What if the help does not come from humanity? What if it comes from us? The room fell silent as everyone considered her words. The species that chose cooperation have grown stronger, she continued. We have new technologies, new knowledge, new capabilities. Maybe it is time for us to be the ones offering protection. That is a dangerous path, Keeper warned. The responsibility of protecting others can corrupt even the best intentions. But it can also teach wisdom, Jinwoo said thoughtfully. Humanity learned to transcend by taking responsibility for others. Maybe that is how we learn too. The idea spread quickly through the cooperating species. They would not force help on anyone, but they would offer it. And when refused, they would continue to offer it. Patient, persistent, compassionate. The first real test came when a plague outbreak hit the Draknari fortress worlds. The disease was one that humanity had prevented many times before. But without their intervention, it spread rapidly. A joint fleet of medical ships, crewed by Corvani doctors, ethereal healers, and human-trained specialists arrived at the Draknari border. They requested permission to help. General Kadrak refused, as expected. But as the death toll mounted, individual Draknari commanders began to allow the medical ships through. They were desperate, and desperation sometimes overcomes pride. The medical teams worked tirelessly, not just treating the disease but teaching Draknari doctors how to prevent future outbreaks. They asked for nothing in return except the chance to help. Slowly, attitudes began to change. "Why are you helping us?" asked Commander Thalesh, a young Draknari officer whose unit had been saved by the medical intervention. "We declared war on your allies. We called you inferior, because that is what people do for each other," replied Dr. Haywan, the human-trained physician leading the medical team. "We help because we can, not because we have to." The same pattern repeated across the galaxy. Keltharian ships stranded by pirate attacks were rescued by former enemies. Isolated worlds facing natural disasters received aid from species they had previously scorned. Not every offer was accepted. Some holdout factions remained stubbornly independent, but cracks were appearing in their resolve. The breakthrough came when Yunseo, a young engineer working with Jinwoo's team, successfully completed the first non-human transcendence process. She did not disappear or become energy beings like humanity had. Instead, she achieved a partial transcendence, existing simultaneously in physical and higher dimensions. "It is incredible," she reported to the stunned research team. "I can see connections between all living things. I can feel the quantum threads that bind the universe together. But I am still me, still Yunseo." Her achievement proved that transcendence was not about abandoning physical existence but about expanding beyond it. Other species began volunteering for the process. Within a year, hundreds of individuals from dozens of species had achieved partial transcendence. They formed a new kind of community, connected across vast distances by quantum consciousness, while still maintaining their individual identities and cultural backgrounds. The galaxy was evolving, and even the holdout species could not ignore the changes. General Kadrak's empire finally collapsed when his own officers refused to follow orders that would result in unnecessary deaths. The new Draknari leadership immediately requested to join the cooperation movement. The Keltharian supremacists held out longer, but eventually even they had to admit that isolation was not sustainable in a universe that required cooperation for survival. 2 years after the choice was made, Ambassador Vextar stood before the first truly unified galactic assembly. Representatives from every species in the galaxy were present, working together to address challenges that no single species could face alone. "We call this the Harmony Accords," he announced, holding up the document that would reshape galactic civilization, not because it brings peace, but because it creates a symphony. Each species playing their own part, but all contributing to something greater than any of us could achieve alone. Sujin watched from the gallery, feeling a deep satisfaction. The mystery of humanity's disappearance had been solved, but more importantly, their purpose had been fulfilled. Humanity had not vanished at all. They had simply evolved into what the galaxy needed them to become: teachers, guides, and guardians who helped others find their own path to transcendence. "Do you think we made the right choice?" Nari asked, standing beside her. "Look around," Sujin replied, gesturing at the assembly where former enemies were working together to solve problems that had seemed impossible just a few years before. "The galaxy is growing up, learning to think beyond itself. I think humanity would be proud." Through the quantum connection that now linked all transcended beings, she could feel humanity's presence. They were still watching, still caring, still ready to help when needed, but they were no longer alone in their responsibility. The galaxy had learned to protect itself by protecting others, to grow stronger by helping others grow, to transcend limitations by refusing to accept that limitations were permanent. Humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy was not their technology or their protection. It was their example. They had shown that evolution was not just about surviving, but about becoming worthy of survival. And now the entire galaxy was following their path, one species at a time, one choice at a time, toward a future where no one had to face the universe alone. The mystery was solved. Humanity had not vanished. They had become infinite,